InstructureCon 2019 occurred last week. Over the course of 3 days, the makers of Canvas, a learning management system, delivered a kind of state of the platform. Instructure leadership discussed numerous new features, the recent acquisitions of Portfolium and Mastery Connect, and described their outlook going forward. Many attendees, however, were more interested to hear about rumblings of the company's expanded data analytics, AI capabilities, and predictive modeling, which have been developed in a working project known as DIG. The effort was announced at the last earnings call. For eLearning Inside, this is Ed Technically. My name is Henry Kronk, and I was at InstructureCon last week, and I got a chance to sit down with Instructure CEO Dan Goldsmith to ask him about DIG and what plans his company had to introduce adaptive, personalized learning features into Canvas. Based on the setup of the room, I had my recorder pointing at Dan and away from me, so the question I ask will be difficult to hear. You'll also be able to hear someone making coffee in the background about a minute in. So I'm just going to play a segment of this interview. Dan gave a pretty long answer. He's a well-spoken, interesting guy, and I think it's interesting to hear it in full. So here it is. We've heard a lot about DIG, and especially now with the Mastery Connect acquisition.
Yeah.
There seems to be a lot of capacity building towards collecting data and analytics. Yeah. And I just want to get an idea of how you feel as the leader of Instructure about adaptive personalized learning and whether or not that's something you want to go towards, and if it's going to potentially be a part of Canvas in the future.
Yeah, well, there's a lot in that question, and I'm happy to talk about all those topics broadly, but to discuss the last point around adaptive and personalized learning, one of the themes that we've talked about within this conference is this connection from the core of teaching and learning and the effectively the operations of enhancing and simplifying teaching and learning, extending to student success. And one of the interesting elements of student success, and as you heard Marta talk about this morning, a quote from one of the education conferences was about student success being individualized. So when you think about adaptive and personalized learning, I think it's inevitable that we as an educational community need to figure out ways of driving more personalized learning and personalized growth experiences. And we're seeing that across the board in how colleges award admittance to their organizations. We see it as individuals move into the professional world and take on careers, and we're seeing more personalizations throughout grade school as well. So, in terms of Instructure, we view our organization as a supporting player in a movement towards that more personalized journey. The other thing that's interesting to me, I attended an education conference a few months ago, and when I attend conferences, I like to get very involved, talk to lots of people, but then I try and take these moments just to try and stand back and understand the themes that are all evolving. What is that general sort of tone and chatter? And when I reflected on this one conference, and by the way, it wasn't just ed tech, it was educators, it was ed tech, it was education service providers, content, etc. What was fascinating to me is that the theme was very much about remediating this skills gap and creating more of this idea of how do we produce students and individuals that are better prepared to take on jobs in the marketplace. But the general tone of the way they were thinking about it was sort of pushing skills into humans, like this idea of almost these generic human vessels that we need to arm with skills based upon a job market. At Instructure, we think of it very differently. We think of it as understanding the individual, their path, their passions, and what their interests are. And we are one piece in a ecosystem and ultimately the scaffolding that should be wrapped around an individual. And I think as we broadly take on more of that mindset of embracing the individual, it's enabled by adaptive and individualized learning, but ultimately leads to student success in that individual's definition. Yeah.
So from what I hear there, the TLDR is that Instructure seems kind of agnostic towards adaptive personalized learning. It's not necessarily a priority of the company, but it's where the education space is moving, so Instructure plans to respond accordingly. Dig is still just reportedly an effort to use AI and predictive modeling to create a personalized learning experience, and beyond that, there really aren't too many further details available. On the other hand, stakeholders have previously expressed concern regarding Canvas's data collection practices, which are necessary to power a kind of adaptive learning experience like that. And Goldsmith is quick to point out that Instructure has no plans to sell student data. In a previous interview with EdSearch, however, he said there would not be a simple opt-out option or any available option to turn off data collection on the platform, reasoning that, quote, it doesn't necessarily work that way, end quote. Instructure did not provide further details on Dig, but has signaled that more news will be announced in the near term. This has been Ed Technically. My name is Henry Kronk. I work as the editor of eLearning Inside. If you liked this episode, please rate and review. If you'd like to hear more, please subscribe. Also keep in mind that this show is available as a video on our YouTube channel and also as a podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and Google Play. The basic content for this video first appeared as an article on eLearning Inside, and if you would like to hear more about online courses, technology in the classroom, and EdTech in general, please be sure to check out our site. If you'd like to get in touch with me, send an email to henry@elearninginside.com. You can also follow us on Twitter @eLearningInside. Thanks for listening.